Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going out into the forest to do some painting. We're going to be using my Guerrilla Painter 6x8. They call it a ThumBox version 2, but it's basically a tiny pochade box. And I'll quickly show you how I set it up and all the components of it, and then we'll head out. By the way, do you like my new glasses? So the pochade box comes basically like this. Has a little plaque on the front, Guerrilla Painter. It has a really nice leather clasp. So it's a natural wood tone. It's unfinished except for a very light varnish, I think. It has kind of like a matte satin finish. It's really subtle. It's not glossy or anything, but I do think it's sealed because it's nice and smooth. So you open the leather clasp. You use this knob to tighten, to allow you to open it however you want. And then when you get it to the spot that you want, you just tighten that. Inside is a removable palette, and it's already finished, so you don't have to do anything to it. It's just extremely light. It's like 2 pieces of wood, not much. But the great thing is that you slide it in, you use this as your palette, and when you close it, nothing touches this area, so you can leave your wet paint in there and you don't have to worry about it getting messed up. So take that out. You can see the inside. I have actually, this is an add-on you can get. This is a tripod mount and feet for the bottom. It comes without that unless you order like the whole kit. So I ordered that separate once I realized I needed it. And so that's already screwed in there. It took me about 15 minutes because the screws are so tiny and they're kind of like tough to get into the corner, but it wasn't a big deal. Right here you see clips which are permanent, and those are to hold your canvas or board or pastel paper or whatever you want to use. I actually bought this pastel board because I was going to try out some pastels at some point. But this is the Guerrilla Painter carton board. They're made for this particular box. They're 6x8. I actually found it's kind of difficult to find 6x8 boards online, so I wanted to test these out. They're extremely thin. They're about as thin as this, which is, you know, like cardstock almost, but they're made for oil painting or acrylic or pastel even, and they're super sturdy, and they come in a pack of 10, which is really nice. So you will slide it in there and you can paint on this side. So let's say you do a painting on this board and then you do a painting on this board. You can put them back to back and keep them in here while you're traveling. And this is floating in that space, so there's nothing it's not touching the back of the box, and nothing is touching the front, so your paintings are safe while you're traveling. I also have a couple accessories, like this portable travel size brush cleaner, and it's just a metal insert in this plastic cup, and you can fill it with whatever solution you use to clean your brushes. So you want to fill it up so that the solution rises above these holes. And when you clean your brush, you kind of wipe them across these holes and all of the particles fall down to the bottom and your brush gets that clean solution. This is also made by Guerrilla, and I don't know, it's really annoying when they put those stickers on the front because I can't get it off, but you can see Guerrilla Painter. And then this is a really cool accessory that I got because I know how annoying it is if you don't have somewhere to put your brushes. It hangs on the side of the box like this, and your brushes go in it. So when they're covered in paint, this is a really, really, really convenient thing to have. You may have seen in my last oil painting video, the Sienna Pochade Box unboxing video, that I have this little portable container for my mediums. So this is linseed oil, and this is fast drying medium. They can actually clip to something with this little clip on the bottom, but I usually don't do that. And I can just store it in here. So all of these, we want our paint, so We can place that in there as well. How's that? And throw that in your backpack. I'm priming my boards with this mixture of acrylic paint and gesso primer in a very neutral tint, which is slightly blue. And I'm just using one layer, and I like to work my brush back and forth and then go over the top on the opposite direction. So we just arrived at Ord Hill, and it's an amazing forest. You can see behind me some of the huge trees. So we're gonna explore for a little while until we reach a spot where we want to paint, or I want to paint. Wolfie is just gonna hang out. He's carrying all the bags. He's so amazing. I've already seen so many amazing places. I can't wait. I was just like jumping up and down when we got out of the car. So yeah, amazing trees all around. Hope I'm not making you dizzy. So we finally made it to a place where we think will be a nice little hangout and beautiful painting location. These three little, well not little, but these three trees, huddled together. They're kind of huddled together. It's going to be my painting. And at the moment they're backlit, which is beautiful. So hopefully the light stays. Otherwise I'll just have to keep in mind how it looked right now. So I've set up the Pochade box on the tripod. And right there's my painting. I've already put the paint on it because when we left the house, I was actually anticipating it being absolutely freezing out, and I didn't want to be fumbling with caps when my hands were numb. So the paint is already on the palette, but it was fine because I kept the Pochade box pretty much face up. It didn't have to worry about the paint like dripping, of course, because it's oil paint, so it doesn't do that. So we're gonna just set up. This is the brush holder. Goes kind of hangs off the edge. The only paint I brought, the extra paint I brought, were my titanium white, my green, and my Prussian blue, because those are the ones I use the most. And I have a couple palette knives in here, and like I said, my cleaning solution is already in there, and my mediums are in here. So if I need those, one thing I actually figured out, which I'm really excited about, is I can clip this to the side of this palette. Oh, I have to do it once it's in there though. And that means I don't have to worry about losing that. And I can actually have this kind of off to the side too. So it's gonna weigh it down a little bit, and then I can have my medium, my solution over there, and it doesn't really move around. Luckily the spot isn't very windy, so I think we'll be okay. Let me grab my brushes. We brought some snacks and stuff too. And I've only brought 4 brushes, 4 sizes, because it's a very small piece. It's only 6 by 8. And my palette knife will be my largest brush technically. And then some extra paper towels. So I'll definitely need at least one of those to start. put the rest in the bag. And I'm actually going to attach the GoPro to my tripod with this so that I don't have to worry about you guys getting dizzy while I'm painting. And it'll give you a little bit of a closer view without me constantly moving around. All right, while we have the light, let's do this. I'm gonna take my larger brush. There are a few people walking close by, so you guys might hear other people. And Wolfie is hanging out nearby. I'm going to use some of my fast drying medium occasionally. I really hope it doesn't get too windy. My palette knife. Mix up some of my titanium white with the fast drying medium. Hi. And we're gonna just sketch in. Oh no, it's getting all, the tripod is bouncing. It's making the camera move a little bit. That's gonna be annoying, isn't it? But it's a really good angle. Just gonna lay in some of my light areas so I remember where they are in case the light leaves. It's creating these beautiful shadows below the tree, so this is just the beginning. There's a nice glowing effect of the grasses behind the trees as well. And the camera can capture that, but there's nothing like painting outdoors. The camera can only do so well capturing the true colors, especially in the shadows. So I'm designing this, it's not directly in the center of the canvas, but it's slightly to the left and it crosses the center and goes up. And I'm going to have some branches hanging down over here with light coming through them so that it has a nice glowing effect. Okay, we're back and you are now mounted onto my chest mount because the other thing was bouncing around too much when I touched the tripod or the canvas. So I hope this view is okay for you guys. It will be less bouncy at least. Oh my god, I just dropped my brush. It's fine. You guys, this is ridiculous. The moment I started setting up, I accidentally dropped my GoPro in the paint. So my GoPro has paint all over it and I tried to wipe it off, but it's already all over my hands and a bunch of my stuff. So every time.
It's going well.
It's going well. So the trees in the distance are a much more neutral tone, have a neutral value of like more of a gray. So I'm going to use some of my blue and green and mix it with the white and then a tiny bit of the Mars black to get it a little more gray. And I'm going to sketch those in. There's so many ways you can go about it, but I like to make sure I get my values correct from the very beginning, or at least know my plan. So the farthest trees in the distance are a little more red, and then there's like a section of bluish gray trees, and then the closer ones are very dark almost silhouetted. So I'm gonna work my way and just throw in really rough placement. Some of those grayer trees. You can hardly see this gray, and that's okay because it's just my base. And I'm going to have these kind of receding into the distance. I will be adding the shadows and highlights after that, but at least this gives me a good idea about composition when I start out. And then we'll start throwing in the background and we'll work forward. At least that's the plan. Throw in a tiny bit of burnt, raw umber. This is just my sketch layer, so yeah. I really want to work with my palette knife, but I'm going to try my brushes for a little while first. Way in the distance, there are some shadowy bits. I'll lay those tones in. I'm working pretty thin right now too, just to get this base layer in. And I had already mixed in my fast drying medium into my titanium white, which I'm adding to pretty much every color as I go. Gets a little bit lighter off to the side, but I'm going to come back in with shadows and stuff later. I'm not going to go off the edge too much. And I'm choosing to go a little cooler with this painting. Just stylistic preference. You can choose whatever colors you want. I like to really have fun with my color palette, so if I'm going to change anything, I use some fun colors in the shadows. The wind picks up a little bit once in a while, and then it just gets chilly. Mixing a little bit of my Dioxazine purple with the burnt sienna and raw umber, or sorry, burnt umber, and it's going to give me like a nice purplish gray tone for some of these trees in the mid. I don't want to add too much detail to the background trees, especially because that will draw your focus too much. So these will be pretty quick impressions. The trees are squeaking, it's so cool. We heard a lot of squeaking on the way up because we were walking among giants and we heard like pine cones falling and branches snapping and squeaks and cracks. It was pretty cool. Once I lay in my base layer of values, then I'm going to step back a little bit, kind of squint my eyes and look at what we have. And as you can see, maybe you don't notice as much, but the sun has hid behind some clouds, so we don't have those bright glowing leaves anymore, which makes me happy that I laid in some of the bright spots to remember where they were. Okay. I mean, you can still see some sun and some light coming through. My hands suddenly got really cold, so I'm gonna put my gloves on. These are my oldest, well, not oldest, but these are my painting gloves. They're covered in paint and stuff, and they have the fingers are free, which is really useful. So I'm going to switch now to my smaller brush, and I'm going to start laying in blocks of color for some of my highlights and shadows and detail, and I'm just going to build it up as I go. So I'm going to make a bright green. It's like a neon, which is going to be a lot of these trees in the background that are illuminated. I want to make sure I don't give them too much detail, since, as I said, they're not the focus. The front is the focus, but they are backlit, and so they're glowing back there, and so we want to indicate that there's something back there in the distance. And not necessarily copying everything I see, just kind of designing it into what I think is a pleasing composition as I go. That's your artistic license, right? Oops. I like to work back and forth between light to dark, but I have noticed with oil, it's really tricky to keep your brights, your whites really bright and white still. That didn't make sense. What I'm trying to say is white gets blended away so fast. So if you want anything to be pure white, which is kind of rare, but sometimes it's nice stylistically, you just have to be really careful or place it on there last. But I like to have a little bit on there at first, just so I remember where my brights are going to be. For the most part, it is not technically pure white, but sometimes that's a cool way to really emphasize the light in a piece and add some glimmer even. And the light changed again. Next time it comes out, I really need to lay in my shadows because it's so hard to remember where they are when it goes behind those trees. So it's like, how do you keep in mind and remember where those amazing highlights and shadows are when they're all gone? I'm taking my burnt umber and mixing it with some Prussian blue to get a really deep shadow color, which is going to be almost black, but I don't like using pure black alone. I think it's more interesting when there are colors visible in the shadows, because that actually is more accurate to nature anyway. So just filling in these silhouettes really loosely and roughly. I'm definitely going to have this, as I said, it's going to be, well, I don't know if I said it, I'm going to have it be a pretty loose and impressionistic style brush strokes, and oh, there you go. So these are all loose in there, and I have some cardboard in there to give me like a nice stable background. But sometimes they get stuck to the brush and they go up. I'm dipping my brush in my fast drying medium occasionally just to kind of thin it out a tiny bit, and also it will make it dry faster, which is very convenient. And I like doing a lot of alla prima stuff, finishing it in one session, and with plein air you don't have a choice. And then so rather than it being dry for like a month, wet for a month, I'll be able to touch it in a week or so. I mean, probably sooner than that because this is so thin, but occasionally if I use really thick layers, I get some wet paint for quite a while. Ooh, the sun is coming back out. Okay. But laying in this darkness is going to help me remember my full range of values. So if this is my darkest part of the painting, then I know the full spectrum that I'm working with. Because obviously white is the brightest. So you can see a little bit better now. The sun is back out and creating those beautiful shadows. And the brown is being illuminated in the base of those trees. So I'm going to start going back and forth between just some raw color, which is like my burnt umbers, my burnt umber, my raw sienna, and burnt sienna. I can hear Wolfie taking photos behind me. Are you taking nature photos? Oh, okay. Act like an artist all of a sudden. He's taking photos of us.
What?
I'm just making fun of myself because whenever people just take photos of me that I'm aware of, I suddenly feel super awkward.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, what do I do with my hands?
You keep painting.
You keep painting, yeah. I'm using quick brush strokes just to get some bigger chunks of color on there, and then I'll come back in with my either palette knife and add some more texture, or use my smaller brush to smooth things out and get a little more detail. But I didn't want to be here for ages, so I'm working in bigger chunks at the moment. It's so shadowy right where I'm standing that it's a little hard to see like the colors that are as they are on my canvas. Occasionally the sun comes out and makes it a little easier, but I'm like trying to make sure I don't do something really weird, and then I get back to the studio and I'm like, what? Why'd you use those colors? Sometimes it really helps to squint and yeah, it's hard for me to talk when I'm painting. This is a true challenge for me. Anytime I've done these videos, like when I did the watercolor ones at Red Rocks and my other videos, I always remember thinking like, I'm starting a sentence, make sure you finish it, but wait, what did I say? See? Yeah.
Well, I'm never sure if you want me to interact with you or not.
Yes, you
Just talking
can.
to everybody.
I'm talking to
Everybody
people
on the
listening. Who knows? People might be just muting it and
Oh,
watching.
Yeah, possibly.
But
I don't know.
oh, there goes the light again.
Yeah.
But we do have some beautiful moss on the ground over here, so I'm gonna lay in some big green tones. I'm kind of like working behind those clips. They're going to be a mess when I get home. I'll have to clean those. I mean, I don't have to, but I will. Eventually, it's just all going to be a mess, so you just got to get used to that, right?
Why is it all going to be a mess?
I mean, like my palette
Oh.
and my tripod and everything I own ever. Okay, we're going to add a little more brown. And these are like some really rough bushes that are purplish, brownish, greenish tones. And I'm just going up to about here, not very high. Kind of carry it across there, and then I'll also be adding some slight illumination to a few of the tips of them. The sun has totally gone away again, so at the moment it's hard to see. When I look at the GoPro, I can actually see more than I can in real life. It's okay. We'll keep going. But we're definitely in sort of a nice shadowy grove at the moment, which when the sun comes out, it's just gorgeous. But it's kind of spooky without the sun.
And cold.
And cold. Oh my goodness. My hands are numb. Oops. Let's get back down there. It helps to brush downwards, I guess. I definitely am leaving a lot of the background showing through. It's a slightly maybe odd stylistic choice, because I know, like, I'm used to painting with gouache and watercolor, where leaving your highlights, preserving your highlights is necessary. And I find myself doing that with opaque mediums even. So I'm sure I'll break that habit eventually. But I do want to create kind of a glowing effect around the rims of these trees. If you saw my recent... okay, they're very loud. I want the sun to come back.
Yeah.
I want to see the beautiful shadows again, because I need to. I need them. Come back to me.
They're going to change all the time.
I know. That's the thing with plein air. Like, you really don't have any control over that. In a studio, you can change your lighting to whatever you want. But my rule of thumb is that when I get to a location, I decide what I love about the light, and I keep that no matter what. So I'm not changing it to a shadowy scene now. I'm going to keep it a bright scene. Well, it'll be eventually. I mean a brightly backlit scene. So, yeah. You can see blue clouds above us. I just don't know which way the sun or the clouds are moving, so. All right, what do we... So I'm going to step back for a second and look. and squint my eyes. It really helps to kind of see the values, and if you're capturing the lights and darks the way you want to be. So I can tell I need to add some more shadow to the shrubbery behind the trees, and then more shadows like far off in the distance. So I'm gonna start laying those in. It's like a bluish green color. That's for the shadows in the distance. There's like grasses that go off into the distance, grasses and shrubs, and then there are some large trees rising up and creating beautiful shadows below the boughs of their tree, so below their own branches. And adding that in will help with the depth of this piece. But it's a little tricky to drop those in, not go overboard. Okay, I'm gonna step on things if I keep backing up. But we are on a slope, so it goes up a little bit higher on the left side. And now I'm gonna start shifting to a brighter green with a little bit of some more yellow tones. Occasionally, here and there are some brighter greens, so I'm just dropping in hints of those colors, and the eye will kind of fill in the rest. Over here, I'm going to be careful in the background because I don't want to go words. The branches from this tree are hanging down right here, so I'm not going to add too much detail behind them, so that this background isn't like ridiculously distracting. Just here and there are some darks, and the tree behind it is dropping a pretty big shadow. These two trees, the pine branches are hanging pretty low, so they're going to come down here. So I'm going to drop the shadows in first in just big chunky layers. Wow, it is so dark. Well, I think the GoPro's doing a pretty good job capturing the light, but man, it's hard for me to see. So now I'm dropping the highlights on those. Again, I'm keeping it very loose so that it won't be too distracting. Okay, it would be so wonderful if the sun came out now so I can really finalize my shadows right here, but I don't think we'll be that lucky. So I may need to just do my best to capture that glow that's coming through that I remember seeing when we first stopped. And I do have reference photos as well, so if I really want to, I can work in the studio when I get home. But I like to finish it while we're out, if possible. Let's add some darkness under here. Just under these two trees, they're creating like a nice shadow. And soon I'll be switching to a smaller brush for some really words. Okay, I did it again. for some finer detail. There we go. Okay, you can do it. All right, so back over here, there are some hanging pine branches kind of coming down. If anyone is watching me who is a wonderful plein air oil painter and you have any advice, please feel free to let me know, because I really want to learn. I'm just kind of teaching myself as I go. I watch lots of videos, of course. I know it's the sun. But yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out as I go. I love this so much though. Oil is becoming one of my favorites. Though I say that every time, don't I? Okay. I'm gonna drop in some just pure white, and as I drop the pure white into this oil, as I drop the pure white into my color that I just laid down, it immediately starts mixing. So it almost instantly becomes like that light green, which is nice. All right, so now let's finalize the base of these trees, because I don't know how long the light will last. I want to make sure I capture that awesome light coming through. So it's really on the rim of that tree, just bright. Being careful. Just need to focus for a second. So I'm sorry I'm so quiet all of a sudden. I'm really trying not to sniffle constantly. Okay, I need a little more shadow right here. This tree is a little more red. These trees are a little more greenish gray. However, they're still really dark because they're in shadow on this backside. But then again, I might get to the studio and see totally different colors and I'm like, holy crap, what did I do? Because as I said, I'm in almost complete shadow. It's so dark where I'm standing that it's hard to see my painting. But I can see the general values, and it'll just be a surprise when we get home. That's all. It'll be great. Okay. I'm going to switch to my slightly smaller brush. It's just a number 6 bright, small version. And I'm going to lay in some chunks of color and shadow. Sorry if I'm sniffling too much. Okay, I'm going to grab some white and yellow, pure, and I'm going to drop in these front leaves while they're there. Well, not leaves, they're like pine, clumps of pine needles coming down, but they are backlit and beautiful in the sunshine. And then we'll be probably calling it done because my goal was to do this quicker. I'll slowly start adding in green. They kind of become a silhouette. But it's bright green. It's like a bright bluish green, or much more vivid green tone than the rest of the painting. So hopefully we'll capture that. I added a tiny bit of Mars Black for some of the shadowy branches. But yay, I'm so glad the sun is out. Although it's staying pretty darn cold right where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Are you like frozen, Wolfie?
Well, I'm pretty sure my nipples could cut through that GoPro case.
So that would be an eye.
Sorry, I don't mean to ruin your video.
Gonna add a little more highlight, just on a couple, kind of as they're hanging down. But we're pretty much nearing the end of this experience. It's been amazing. Next time, we may have time to do another one before we leave today, but if my hands are numb, so maybe not. But next time, hopefully we'll have more time. It's getting a little warmer each week. But quickly, I'm going to step back and see and squint my eyes again. I think I'm going to add a tiny bit more shadow to the right side trees so that it kind of vignettes the painting and and forces the viewer to look inward. I'm thinking I might actually use my palette paper next time I do this because it's white and it will, when this paint is thin, it'll really show the color. I don't know if that made sense because I can see the color while it's on the palette a little bit, but since I'm in shadow right now, it's really hard to discern, especially the darker tones and the darker color. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting. I might try the palette paper and see how it goes. Okay, stop moving. Gonna add a little more. It's kind of a grayish color. A lot of the shrubs right now are just coming back from winter slumber, I guess, and they're very almost gray, brownish gray, which is a little tricky to paint. I'm letting some raw white kind of hang out in my brush as I go, and as I touch this, it kind of mixes itself. It does the work for you. Okay, a little darker. This background tree. Darken the tree trunks just on these background. Just a little bit. And add a tiny bit of highlight. I should clean my brush, but at this point I'm like, I'm almost done. You could figure out how to do it without cleaning it. Once I start using the Mars Black, it really affects all the color, so try to clean it more often. But so I'm placing in some of this background, having some of the shrubs on the lower area kind of illuminated, and then I'll come back in with my darker value and sort of drop in some shadow, take away a little bit of the brightness, just kind of blend it, add some more variety to those textures. And then soon we will just have to call it. Can eat a couple snacks on the way back down the trail. Yeah. Surprised you haven't broke out the Cheetos.
Well, I didn't want to.
They are kind of loud. Oh, I see. I wouldn't get any.
Well, you know, because you're busy painting, and I would be sitting there going, oh,
yeah,
shit,
you'd be. Gone. Yeah. By the way, you guys may have noticed, I don't know how much you've heard Wolfie, but everybody swears in Scotland, like constantly. Just part of their speech.
Did I swear?
Yes, you did.
Did I? Oh.
It's funny. But something you get used to. I mean, it's not everybody, but a lot of people do. So, you don't ever worry about someone being mad at you. That's just how they talk. Learn that pretty quickly. Just adding in a little shadow under these boughs. I'm basically reloading my brush almost immediately because I want thicker deposits of paint. This is a very, it's a smooth brush. It doesn't have a lot of rough bristles, so it's a little bit trickier to get the rough texture that I like. So I really have to continuously load it up again. Okay, one last sweep of shadow under these trees, because I didn't quite get it to the point I wanted. You know. Just kind of letting this melt off the side. No, there might be like, let's see, squint again. This spot is bothering me a little bit. There's not enough difference between the tree branch and the background, so I'm going to neutralize that a little bit. And then come in with some dark green. Lay in and then the highlight once more. Come on, you can do it. Highlights. I'm using a lot of yellow in this just to get like a little glimmer on the edge of those. Not super thick, but it is just like pure color. And I'm just letting it, oops, sorry if you couldn't see that. Just touching the edge. And since they're pine needles, I'm not doing like big scrapes of color. Just a tiny bit right there. Ooh, I'm like blind from that. There we go. But my light has like totally changed, even though it's still sunny. Yeah, it's hard to see the original shadows, so I just have to kind of make that decision, and I'm gonna say, yeah, we're done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this experience with me. I can quickly show you guys more of a close-up. Next to the actual trees themselves. So this is where we were. This is where I was looking. That's what we ended up with. Pretty fun. I'll see you guys back in the studio. Okay, we are back in the studio taking a look at the results, and I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised. As I said, it was a little difficult to see while we were in the forest because it was so shadowy where I was standing, but yeah, I'm really happy with the results because I feel like I captured the lighting and the beautiful atmosphere that I saw while I was in the forest, and that's always my goal. So I guess for now I'm going to start editing and looking things over. I took a lot of photos while we were walking through the forest, so I'm excited to edit those, and then of course this video. So I wish I could have painted longer. Maybe next time we'll get a longer session, and I'll definitely be doing more of these because the weather's getting a little bit warmer, which is great. So until next time, guys, keep painting and stay inspired. I'll see you soon.